The cabin lights had dimmed to that peculiar amber glow that made everything feel suspended between wakefulness and sleep. Flight 2847 from Seattle to Denver cut through the night sky, its engines humming a steady monotone that should have been soothing. Should have been. Instead, the piercing wail of a 9-month-old baby shattered the artificial peace. Evan Carter pressed Noah closer to his chest, bouncing him with increasing desperation. The motion that usually calmed his son now seemed to amplify the crying. Sweat gathered at the base of Evan's neck, trickling down his spine beneath his rumpled flannel shirt. His hands trembled, not from exertion, but from something deeper. Something closer to drowning. "Shh, buddy, please," Evan whispered, his voice cracking. "Please, Noah. Daddy's here." Noah's face had turned crimson. His tiny fists clenched as he arched his back against Evan's arms. The cry wasn't just loud, it was primal, desperate. The kind that reached into every passenger's chest and squeezed. From seat 12C, a businessman in a crisp navy suit lowered his laptop screen with exaggerated slowness. "Can you do something about that?" The words weren't a question. Evan's face burned. "I'm trying. Well, try harder." A woman across the aisle didn't even look up from her tablet, her voice flat with exhaustion. The flight attendant approached with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sir, is there anything we can help with? Perhaps a bottle? A pacifier?" "He won't take it." Evan fumbled in the diaper bag slung over his shoulder, pulling out a bottle. Noah had already refused 3 times. "He's teething, and the pressure change. I've tried everything." "Maybe walk him to the back?" she suggested gently. Already moving to the next row, Evan stood, his legs unsteady from more than just turbulence. He made his way down the narrow aisle, Noah's cries seeming to amplify in the confined space. Passengers pulled their blankets higher, turned away, put in earbuds. A teenage girl stared at him with something between pity and disgust. The plane shuddered not violently, just enough to remind everyone they were in a metal tube hurtling through darkness. The seatbelt sign dinged on. An elderly man muttered something about kids these days and proper parenting. Evan's vision blurred. Not from tears, though, those threatened too, but from exhaustion so complete it felt like drowning. He'd been running on 3 hours of sleep for the past 8 months. Ever since the night Lila closed her eyes in that hospital room and never opened them again. Ever since the moment he became the only parent Noah would ever have. "I don't know what to do," Evan whispered to his son, his voice lost beneath the crying. "Your mom would know. God, Lila would know exactly what to do." The turbulence eased, but Noah's screaming didn't. If anything, it intensified, hoarse now, exhausted, but unrelenting. Evan's arms ached. His back ached. His heart ached in ways he didn't have words for. He was failing. Publicly. Spectacularly. And everyone could see it. Then, through the haze of exhaustion and shame, Evan became aware of movement. Someone was standing up in the middle section. A woman, maybe in her late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore jeans and a gray sweater. Nothing remarkable, but something in the way she moved made Evan pause. She wasn't rushing, wasn't annoyed. She was walking toward him, with the kind of calm that felt impossible in this moment. When she reached them, she didn't speak right away. Instead, she made eye contact with Evan, really looked at him, and in that glance was something he hadn't seen in months. Understanding without judgment. "Hey!" she said softly, her voice somehow audible beneath Noah's cries. "I'm Maya. Would you let me try something?" Evan blinked at the woman standing before him, his exhausted brain struggling to process the offer. A stranger wanted to hold his baby? His screaming, inconsolable baby that he, the actual father, couldn't calm? I don't know if Evan started, but Maya was already extending her arms in a way that felt practiced, confident. "I know it's weird," Maya said, her brown eyes steady and kind. "But I have a daughter. She's 4 now. I remember the plane crying. It's different than regular crying, right? The pressure, the confined space, everything just amplifies their distress." Noah's wails continued, his small body rigid with misery. Evan glanced around. Every face in the vicinity was turned toward them, watching this strange negotiation. The businessman from 12C had his phone out now, probably timing how long this disruption would last. "Please," Maya added. And there was something in that single word, not pity, not condescension, just a genuine desire to help that broke through Evan's resistance. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay, yes, please." The transfer was awkward at first. Noah's body stayed tense, his crying uninterrupted. But Maya adjusted her hold with the kind of muscle memory that came from thousands of repetitions. She positioned him against her shoulder, one hand supporting his head, the other firmly against his back. Then she began to hum. It wasn't a tune Evan recognized, low and melodic, with a rhythm that seemed to match the plane's engine hum. Maya swayed gently, her movements minimal but deliberate. She turned slightly, shielding Noah from the overhead lights, creating a small pocket of dimness against her shoulder. 10 seconds passed. Noah's crying hitched. Once. Twice. 20 seconds. The wails softened to whimpers. 30 seconds. Silence. The change was so abrupt that Evan actually gasped. Around them, he could feel the collective exhale of relief from nearby passengers. The businessman closed his laptop completely. The woman across the aisle pulled out her earbuds, looking almost suspicious of the sudden quiet. Noah's small hand had curled into the fabric of Maya's sweater. His eyes were half closed, his breathing evening out into the shuddering rhythm of a child who had cried himself to the edge of sleep. "How did you—" Evan's voice came out hoarse. "What did you do?" Maya kept swaying, kept humming for another minute before she spoke. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. Sometimes they just need a different heartbeat, a different voice. It doesn't mean you were doing anything wrong, but it felt wrong. It felt like proof of every fear Evan had carried since the moment the doctor told him Lila wasn't going to make it, that he wasn't enough, that Noah needed a mother, and Evan was a poor substitute, flailing and failing. "I'm his dad," Evan said, and hated how defensive it sounded. "I should be able to." "You've been his dad for 9 months, Maya interrupted gently. "I'm guessing most of that alone?" When Evan nodded, she continued. "You're doing the work of 2 people on probably no sleep, grieving, and trying to figure everything out by yourself. That doesn't make you bad at this. It makes you human." The words hit Evan like a physical thing. His throat tightened. He looked away, blinking hard against the sudden burn in his eyes. "The seatbelt sign is off," Maya said after a moment. "Why don't we sit? There's an empty seat next to me. My daughter's asleep there, but there's room." Evan followed her back to row 18, moving like a man in a dream. Maya's seat was next to the window, and beside it, curled up with a unicorn blanket, was a small girl with dark curls. She didn't stir as they approached. Maya sat, still cradling Noah, and Evan sank into the aisle seat next to her. The relief of sitting down, of not being the center of hostile attention, was so intense he nearly laughed. "That's Ava," Maya said, nodding toward her daughter. "She's usually a light sleeper, but she was up early this morning." "We're coming back from—" She paused. "A funeral." "I'm sorry," Evan said automatically. Maya continued the soft humming, and Noah's breathing deepened further into genuine sleep. "My grandmother. She raised me, helped me raise Ava. She was—" Maya's voice caught slightly. "She was everything." In the dim cabin light, Evan could see the shadows under Maya's eyes, the tightness around her mouth that spoke of grief, held carefully in check. "I lost my wife," Evan heard himself say. "Almost a year ago. Complications during childbirth. Noah never got to. He couldn't finish." Maya looked at him then, really looked at him, and for the first time since that terrible hospital room, Evan felt truly seen. Not pitied, not judged, just seen. "I'm so sorry," Maya said, and the words carried weight. "That's— God, I can't imagine." They sat in silence for a moment, 2 strangers suspended in the sky, bound by grief and unexpected grace. "The song you were humming," Evan said finally. "What is it?" Maya smiled slightly, sadly. "My grandmother's lullaby. She used to sing it to me, then to Ava. It doesn't have English words, it's from the old country, she called it. Somewhere in Eastern Europe. But the meaning is universal." She paused, looking down at Noah's peaceful face. "It means, you are not alone." Evan had not really cried since the funeral. There had been too much to do, hospital bills to pay, insurance to wrestle with, baby equipment to learn, a job to somehow maintain. Grief was a luxury he couldn't afford. So he'd packed it away in the same drawer where he'd put Lila's perfume bottles and the wedding photos he couldn't look at yet. But sitting in that dim airplane cabin, Watching a stranger soothe his son with more success than he'd managed in weeks, something inside Evan finally cracked. It started as a tremor in his shoulders. Then his breath hitched. Before he could stop it, tears were streaming down his face, silent but relentless. He pressed his palms against his eyes, mortified, trying to make himself smaller in the narrow seat. "Hey," Maya said softly. She made no move to touch him, to invade his space, but her presence was solid beside him. "Hey, it's okay." "It's not," Evan choked out. I can't even comfort my own son." "What kind of father can't?" "A tired one," Maya interrupted firmly. "An overwhelmed one. A grieving one. But not a bad one." Evan shook his head, unable to speak. The words he'd been holding back for months tumbled out in broken fragments. "She died because of him. That's what my brain keeps saying, even though I know it's not true. The doctors said it was rare, just one of those things, but she died because we had a baby. Because we wanted him, and now he's here and she's not. And I love him so much, but sometimes I look at him and I can't breathe." Maya waited until he'd finished, until the words had emptied out and left him hollow. "You know what I see?" she said finally. "I see a dad who got on a plane alone with a baby, who kept trying even when everyone around him was being awful, who's doing something incredibly hard without any support. That's not failure, Evan. That's courage. Doesn't feel like courage. It never does. Not in the moment." Maya adjusted Noah slightly. The baby stirred but didn't wake, his small fingers still clutching her sweater. "After Ava's dad left when she was 6 months old, I spent 3 months thinking I'd made a terrible mistake. That I couldn't do it. That she'd be better off with someone who actually knew what they were doing." Evan looked up at that. "What changed?" "My grandmother told me something. She said, 'Children don't need perfect, they need present.'" Maya's voice softened. "You're present, Evan. You're here, you're trying, you're showing up even when it's hard. That's what matters. That's what Noah will remember." The plane hit a patch of smooth air, and the ride evened out. Around them, passengers had returned to their own worlds, books, movies, sleep. The crisis had passed, forgotten by everyone except the 3 people in row 18. "I'm supposed to be in Denver for a client meeting," Evan said, his voice still rough. "Tech startup, big project. I almost canceled, but I've already rescheduled twice because of Noah being sick. I thought maybe if I could just prove I could handle this, handle all of it." "You don't have to prove anything," Maya said. "Not to them, not to anyone on this plane. Maybe not even to yourself." Evan wiped his face with the back of his hand, feeling wrung out but somehow lighter. "Thank you," he said. "For this. For him. I don't know how to." "You don't have to thank me." Maya glanced down at Ava, who had shifted in her sleep, her small face pressed against the window. "I know what it's like to feel alone in this. If I can make it a little less lonely for someone else, even just for a flight, then, I don't know. It helps." "Helps what?" "Helps me remember that good people still exist. That kindness still matters." She smiled. "But there was grief in it too. My grandmother believed that very deeply. She'd be happy knowing I'm passing it on." Noah made a small sound. Something between a sigh and a whimper. Maya resumed the quiet humming, and the baby settled immediately. Evan watched, mesmerized, trying to memorize the melody, the rhythm, the exact way she swayed. "Could you teach me?" he asked suddenly. "The song?" "I want to be able to." "Of course." Maya hummed a phrase, then another, walking him through the wordless melody. Evan tried to match it, his voice uncertain but earnest. From her seat, Ava stirred, blinking awake. Her eyes, dark like her mother's, focused on the scene. Her mom holding a baby, a tall man with red eyes sitting beside them. "Mommy?" Her voice was small, confused. "Hey, baby," Maya said gently. "This is Evan, and this is baby Noah. Noah was sad, so I'm helping him feel better." Ava sat up, fully awake now, studying Evan with the unfiltered curiosity of a 4-year-old. Why was he sad? "His ears hurt from the airplane," Maya explained. "Remember when your ears hurt last time?" Ava nodded solemnly. Then, without warning, she leaned across her mother and patted Noah's tiny foot. "It's okay, baby Noah," she said, with complete seriousness. "Airplanes are loud, but then you get to land and have snacks." Despite everything, Evan laughed. It came out watery, and surprised, but genuine. That's true. Snacks do help. Ava beamed, pleased with herself. I have goldfish crackers. Does baby Noah like goldfish? He's a little young for those, Maya said. But maybe we can give some to his daddy? Ava dug into the small backpack at her feet and produced a slightly crumpled bag of crackers. She thrust them at Evan with the kind of generosity only children possess, absolute and without calculation. Thank you, Evan said, accepting them like the precious gift they were. That's very kind. You're welcome, Ava said primly. Then, to Noah. When you get bigger, you can have some too. They're the best. The four of them sat together as the plane flew on through the darkness. Maya continued to hold Noah, who slept with the completeness of an infant who had exhausted himself. Ava chatted softly about her goldfish, her grandmother's garden, a cat she'd seen at the funeral home. For the first time in 9 months, Evan felt something other than drowning. He felt like maybe, possibly, he might survive this after all. The flight attendant came by with the drink cart, and Maya quietly requested water. Ava asked for apple juice with no ice because ice makes my teeth cold, a specification that made Evan smile despite his emotional exhaustion. As the attendant moved on, Ava turned her attention back to Noah, studying him with intense focus. Mommy. Why doesn't he have a mommy? The question hung in the air. Maya's hand stilled on Noah's back for just a moment before resuming its gentle circles. His mommy died, sweetheart, Maya said softly. Remember how we talked about great-grandma going to heaven? Ava's eyes widened. His mommy is in heaven too? Yes, Evan managed. Ava processed this with the strange wisdom children sometimes possess. That's really sad, she announced. Then, practically. But he has a daddy. That's good. I don't have a daddy. But I have mommy and I had great-grandma. She paused. Now I just have mommy. But that's still good, because mommy is the best. Thank you, Bug, Maya said, her voice tight. Evan looked at Maya over Noah's sleeping form. His father left? He asked quietly. When Ava was 6 months old. Maya's expression was carefully neutral. He said he wasn't ready to be a father. Said he'd made a mistake. She paused, taking a sip of water. The thing is, I gave him every opportunity to leave before she was born. Multiple conversations about options, about what we both wanted. He swore he was ready. Then she arrived and suddenly reality hit, and she shrugged. He left. No contact since. No support, no visits, nothing. I'm sorry, Evan said. Because what else was there to say? I was angry for a long time, Maya admitted. At him, at myself for believing him, at the universe for making it so hard. My grandmother helped me through it. She moved in with us when Ava was 8 months old, took over the spare bedroom. Said she wasn't going to let her great-granddaughter grow up without family around. She sounds like an amazing person. She was. Maya's voice cracked slightly on the past tense. She taught me how to cook, how to budget for 2 people on 1 income, how to change a diaper with one hand while stirring pasta with the other. She walked Ava to preschool every morning because my shift at the café started at 6. Maya stopped, composing herself. Sorry. It's still fresh. You don't have to apologize, Evan said. When did she pass? 4 days ago. Heart attack. Quick, they said. Probably didn't suffer. But I didn't get to say goodbye. I was at work, Ava was at school, and Gran was making soup for dinner. The neighbor found her when Ava got home, and no one answered the door. Ava had gone quiet, pressing closer to her mother's side. Maya wrapped her free arm around her daughter. We went back to Gran's house, my house now, I guess for the funeral, Maya continued. All her friends came, people from the neighborhood, the library where she volunteered, the church she dragged me to sometimes. Every single person had a story about something kind she'd done. A meal brought over, help with a bill, time spent listening. Maya smiled through tears. One woman said Gran taught her to read English when she immigrated. She was 73 and decided to learn Portuguese just so they could talk better. She sounds extraordinary, Evan said honestly. The house feels so empty now, Maya whispered. Ava keeps asking when Gran is coming home. She understands death as a concept, but understanding and accepting are different things. I know, Evan said. Noah's too young to ask questions, but sometimes I catch myself about to tell Lila something. About to call her to ask which onesie she liked better, or if the rash on his neck is normal. Then I remember. They sat in the understanding of shared loss, different in details but similar in weight. Around them, the plane continued its journey. Someone's phone dinged. A baby several rows back, not Noah, someone else's child, began to fuss before quieting. "The lullaby your grandmother sang," Evan said after a while. "You said it means you are not alone." "It does. But there's more to it." Maya glanced down at Noah, still sleeping peacefully. "The full phrase, at least how Gran explained it to me, is, you are not alone, even when you feel most lonely. The love that made you is still here, in the people who carry you forward." Evan felt his throat tighten again. "That's beautiful. Gran used to say it when I was crying about Ava's father leaving. She'd say, 'He may be gone, but you're not alone. I'm here, you're here, Ava's here, we're carrying each other.'" Maya's eyes shone with unshed tears. "Now Gran's gone and I keep thinking, who's going to help carry me? Who's going to teach Ava the things I don't know how to teach her?" "You will," Evan said with sudden conviction. "Because you already are. Look at what you just did. You saw someone struggling and you helped, even though you're carrying your own grief. That's not weakness. That's exactly what your grandmother taught you." Maya looked at him, really looked, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or the beginning of something neither was ready to name. Ava yawned, a huge jaw-cracking yawn that made her squeak, "Mommy, I'm sleepy again." Then sleep, bug. Maya adjusted so Ava could curl against her side, even as she continued to hold Noah. "We still have an hour before we land. Will baby Noah's daddy be okay?" Ava asked, her voice already drowsy. Evan answered before Maya could. "I think so, Ava. Thanks to you and your mom." "Good," Ava murmured. "'Cause great-grandma says we gotta help people. It's the most important job." Within minutes, Ava was asleep again, her breathing syncing with Noah's in an oddly harmonious rhythm. Maya sat between the two sleeping children, looking exhausted but somehow more at peace than she had since boarding. "She's right, you know," Maya said softly. "Gran did always say that. Help people. That's the job." "Seems like you learned it well," Evan said. They didn't talk much after that. Words felt unnecessary. Instead, they sat together in the shared quiet, two broken people holding pieces of each other's burdens, flying through the night towards separate destinations and uncertain futures. But for this moment, suspended in air and time, they were not alone. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've begun our descent into Denver. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for landing." The announcement pulled Evan from the strange, suspended peace he'd found in row 18. Reality was returning, bringing with it all the complications and responsibilities he'd briefly forgotten. Maya shifted carefully, trying not to wake Noah. "We should get him back to you before we land," she murmured. "Right, of course." Evan reached for his son, and the transfer was smooth this time, practiced. Noah stirred but didn't fully wake, settling against Evan's familiar chest with a small sigh. It was remarkable, really. The same baby who had screamed himself hoarse an hour ago now slept peacefully. His body relaxed, trusting, as if the intervention of a stranger's kindness had reset something fundamental. "Thank you," Evan said again, knowing the words were insufficient but having no better ones. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." "You would have figured it out," Maya interrupted gently. "Parents always do, eventually. I just gave you both a break." Ava woke as the plane's descent became more noticeable, her ears popping. She whimpered slightly, and Maya helped her through the discomfort with the same calm competence she'd shown with Noah. Around them, passengers began gathering belongings, checking phones that had been on airplane mode, preparing for the transition back to their individual lives. The brief community of shared space was dissolving. Evan felt a strange panic rising. In an hour, Maya and Ava would board a connecting flight to Portland. He'd catch his ride to the meeting that suddenly seemed pointless. They would return to being strangers who'd once shared a plane ride, nothing more. "Listen," he said as the plane touched down, wheels hitting tarmac with a screech and bounce. "I'd like to buy you coffee. Or dinner. Both? To say thank you properly. I know we're both connecting, but if you have time?" Maya's expression shifted, something closing off. "That's kind, but I don't think. Please." Evan heard the desperation in his voice and tried to moderate it. "Not as I'm not trying to, I just want to say thank you. Properly." "You already have," Maya said softly. The plane was taxiing now, moving toward the gate. And I appreciate it. But I'm not, she paused, choosing words carefully. I'm not in a place to make new connections right now. I need to focus on Ava. On getting through this time. I'm sure you understand. Evan did understand, even as disappointment settled in his chest. Of course. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. Maya's smile was genuine but sad. You're a good person, Evan. Noah's lucky to have you. The plane reached the gate. The seatbelt sign dinged off, and immediately passengers stood, retrieving bags, crowding the aisles with the barely controlled chaos of deplaning. Evan stood, juggling Noah and the diaper bag. Maya gathered Ava and their own belongings. They were swept into the current of people moving toward the exit. The separation inevitable. As they shuffled down the aisle, Ava suddenly tugged on her mother's hand. "Mommy, wait!" Maya paused, and Ava reached into her small backpack, pulling out a handkerchief. It was pale yellow, embroidered with delicate flowers, and the initials MT in one corner. "Great-grandma made this for me," Ava said, holding it up toward Noah. "But baby Noah is sad, so he should have it. To remember, he's not alone." "Oh, sweetheart, we don't," Maya started. But Ava was already tucking the handkerchief into Noah's blanket, patting it into place with the solemnity of a sacred ritual. "There. Now you have something from great-grandma. She was really good at making people feel better." Evan felt his eyes burn again. "Ava. Thank you. That's incredibly special." Maya's hand trembled as she touched her daughter's hair. "Are you sure, Bug? Gran made that just for you." "I'm sure," Ava said firmly. "You said we help people, Mommy. This is helping." As Ava pulled her hand back, something fluttered from the handkerchief, a small piece of paper, folded once. It landed on the seat they'd just vacated. Maya picked it up, unfolded it, and her expression flickered with something Evan couldn't quite read. She hesitated for a long moment, then pressed the paper into Evan's free hand, closing his fingers around it. "My grandmother's café," she said quietly. "In Portland. Willow and Steam. I work there most mornings, and Ava comes after school." She met his eyes. "If someday you're in Portland, and if someday you feel like you're ready for the world to be bigger than just survival, we're there. Usually." Before Evan could respond, Maya took Ava's hand and moved into the flow of departing passengers. Within seconds, they were absorbed by the crowd, just another mother and daughter in a sea of travelers. Evan stood frozen for a moment before the pressure of people behind him forced him to move. He made his way off the plane, through the gate, into the terminal. His connecting ride was waiting, a car service arranged by the client. Professional and punctual. But as the driver loaded his minimal luggage and Evan settled Noah into the borrowed car seat, he kept the handkerchief carefully tucked in his pocket, the paper even more carefully tucked inside it. At a red light, he unfolded the note. The address was written in neat handwriting: Willow and Steam Café, 2847 NW Thurman St. Portland, or 97210. Beneath it, in what must have been Ava's careful printing, "We are here." Evan traced the letters with his thumb. Portland was 3 hours north of Seattle. He could make the drive on a weekend maybe. Take Noah. Walk in. Order a coffee. And then what? Impose on a woman who'd made clear she wasn't looking for new connections? Use her kindness as an opening for something she'd already declined? The car pulled up to his hotel. The client meeting was in 2 hours. He had work to do, a job to keep, a son to support. He folded the paper and put it in his wallet, behind his driver's license where he'd see it every time he opened it, just in case. Just in case someday his world did feel bigger than survival. Just in case Maya and Ava were still there, in a cafe named for Willows and Steam, carrying forward the kindness of a grandmother who believed that helping people was the most important job. The hotel lobby was bright and impersonal. Noah woke up as they entered, looking around with wide eyes at the chandeliers and echoing voices. "It's okay, buddy," Evan murmured, holding him close. "We're okay." And for the first time, he almost believed it. Seattle in spring was beautiful in a way that hurt. Cherry blossoms scattered across sidewalks like snow. The sun emerged for hours at a time, coaxing people outside to remember what warmth felt like. The city bloomed, and Evan felt like he was drowning. Not the frantic drowning of those first months after Lila died. This was slower, quieter. The kind where you keep your head just above water but never quite remember how to swim. His job at Cascade Technologies had been understanding, to a point. Remote work helped. His manager, Patricia, had a granddaughter, Noah's age, which bought him grace when meetings were interrupted by crying, or he logged on at odd hours because those were the hours Noah slept, but understanding had limits. The project in Denver had gone well enough, but the follow-up contract required on-site presence. Just 2 days a week, Patricia had said, apologetically. The client is old school. They want FaceTime. Evan hired a nanny. Then another when the first one quit. Then a third. Noah cried every time Evan left. The guilt was crushing. He tried daycare. Noah got sick immediately, ear infection, then a cold, then another ear infection. Evan burned through sick days and accrued irritated glances from colleagues who didn't have children, who didn't understand that sometimes you simply could not control the chaos. At night, after Noah finally slept, Evan would sit in the living room of the small house he and Lila had bought with such hope. Her things were still everywhere. Her jacket on the hook, her slippers by the bed. Her handwriting on the grocery list stuck to the fridge. Don't forget avocados. He couldn't throw anything away. But he also couldn't look at it. So he'd pull out his wallet instead, and he'd look at the folded paper tucked behind his license. The address in Portland. The careful note. We are here. 3 times, he loaded Noah into the car and drove south. 3 times, he made it as far as the exit for Thurman Street, before his nerve failed and he took the next exit, circling back toward Seattle. What would he even say? Hi! Remember me from the plane? You were kind once, and I'm still a mess, and I thought maybe. What? That she'd fix him the way she'd fixed that one terrible flight? That wasn't fair. To her or to himself, but he couldn't stop thinking about it. About her. About the way she'd looked at him without judgment. About Ava's small gift, and Maya's quiet strength. About the lullaby that was the only thing guaranteed to soothe Noah when he was inconsolable. Evan had tried to learn it properly. He played it over and over in his mind, humming it as he rocked Noah, as he changed diapers, as he drove through Seattle traffic. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes Noah would calm, and Evan would feel a flash of competence. Other times it didn't, and the failure felt personal. Your mom would be so much better at this, he whispered to Noah one particularly difficult night. She'd know what to do. She'd have the right touch, the right words. I'm trying, buddy. I'm trying so hard. Noah, 6 months older now and newly mobile, crawled across the floor and pulled himself up on Evan's leg. He looked up at his father with eyes that were pure Lila, the same shape, the same impossible blue, and babbled something that might have been Dada. Evan picked him up, held him close, and cried quietly into his son's hair. The next morning, Evan called Patricia. I need to take some personal time. Is Noah sick again? No. Evan searched for words. I need to take care of something, for me. For both of us. There was a pause. Then, take the week. You've got the hours. Thank you. Evan? Whatever you're dealing with, I hope you find what you need. After he hung up, Evan looked at the calendar. It was late October. Almost November. Almost a full year since that flight. Noah's first birthday was in 2 weeks. Evan had been dreading it, the milestone that would mark a full year of Lila being gone. A full year of him fumbling through fatherhood alone. He'd been planning something small, just the 2 of them, and maybe Patricia's daughter who'd become friendly. But looking at the calendar, another thought emerged. What if he stopped running from connection? What if he took the chance? He picked up Noah, who immediately grabbed his glasses. What do you think, buddy? Want to go on an adventure? Noah gurgled, which Evan chose to interpret as yes. That afternoon, Evan booked a hotel in Portland for the following weekend. Then he sat with his decision, waiting for panic, for doubt. Instead, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Willow and Steam Café occupied a corner building in Portland's Northwest District, the kind of neighborhood where narrow streets were lined with independent bookstores, boutiques selling handmade soap, and restaurants that put descriptions like locally sourced on everything. Evan circled the block twice before finding parking. His hands were sweating despite the cool November air. Noah babbled happily in his car seat, oblivious to his father's anxiety. Okay, Evan said aloud. We're just going to get coffee. If Maya's there, we say hello. If she's not, we got coffee. Simple. Noah blew a raspberry, which seemed like commentary. The cafe's exterior was painted a soft sage green, with a large window that looked in on a warm, cluttered interior. Mismatched furniture, plants hanging from the ceiling, local art on the walls. A chalkboard sign outside advertised pumpkin spice and reasonable expectations. Evan lifted Noah out of the car, settled him on his hip, and approached the door. His hand was on the handle when doubt crashed back. What if she didn't remember him? What if she did remember, but wished she didn't? What if showing up like this was weird, stalkerish, completely inappropriate? Before he could spiral further, the door opened from the inside. An older man, 70s maybe, with a weathered face and kind eyes, held it open with a smile. "Come on in, son. Don't let the cold in with you." Evan entered before he could change his mind. The cafe smelled like coffee and cinnamon, and something baking. It was busy but not crowded, a few people working on laptops, a couple sharing pastries, someone reading in a corner armchair. Music played softly, something folksy and gentle. Behind the counter, a young woman with purple-streaked hair looked up. "Hi, what can I get you?" Evan's heart sank slightly. Not Maya. Which was fine. Expected, even. She'd said she worked mornings usually, and it was almost noon now. Of course she wasn't here. Just a regular coffee. Medium. You got it. The barista, her name tag read Jules, began preparing it. Cute kid. How old? 15 months. Evan bounced Noah slightly, a reflexive motion. Adorable. Jules handed him the coffee. Anything for the little one? We have apple juice, goldfish crackers. It's the airplane, Daddy. The shriek came from the back of the cafe. Evan turned, and there was Ava, older but unmistakable, wearing a striped shirt and jeans, her dark hair in 2 pigtails. She was pointing at him with the kind of excitement reserved for celebrity sightings. Before Evan could respond, Ava was running toward him, weaving between tables with the confidence of a child who spent a lot of time in this space. "Mommy! Mommy! It's him! It's baby Noah's daddy!" And there, emerging from a doorway marked kitchen, was Maya. She wore an apron over jeans and a flannel shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She carried a tray of pastries, which she nearly dropped as her eyes locked on Evan. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The entire cafe seemed to pause, watching this unexpected reunion. Then Noah, recognizing something, some scent or sense of memory, lurched forward in Evan's arms, reaching toward Maya with both hands, and making a sound that was unmistakably, "Mama, Mama." Maya set the tray down carefully on the nearest table, her hands trembling. Ava had already reached Evan, hugging his leg with fierce enthusiasm. "You came! You came to our cafe!" Ava looked up at Noah, who was still reaching toward her mother. "Hi, baby Noah! You got so big!" "Hey, Ava," Evan managed, his voice rough. "You got bigger too." Maya approached slowly, as if moving through water. Her eyes were fixed on Noah, who continued to lean toward her, making increasingly insistent sounds. Maya's voice caught. "Does he remember?" "The lullaby," Evan said. "It's the only thing that works when he's really upset. I've been singing it or trying to for 7 months. I don't know if he remembers you specifically or just recognizes something about you, but..." Maya reached out tentatively, and Noah practically lunged into her arms. The transfer was so natural, so fluid, that it looked rehearsed. Once in her arms, Noah immediately tucked his head into her shoulder, making the same contented sound he'd made on the plane. A woman at a nearby table made a soft awe sound. The older man who'd held the door was watching with undisguised interest. Jules leaned over the counter, grinning. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. She was crying, Evan realized. Silent tears running down her face as she held Noah. He does remember. Or his body does. Babies, they have sense memory, even if they don't have cognitive memory. And she looked at Evan, overwhelmed. "You taught him the lullaby?" "Tried to. I probably mangled it, but it's what you sang on the plane, and it was the only thing that..." Evan felt his own tears threatening. "You saved us that night. Both of us. I've wanted to say thank you properly, but I didn't know if showing up was... I wasn't sure if..." "You kept the address," Maya said softly. "I kept everything, the handkerchief too. Ava's gift." Evan fumbled in his jacket pocket, pulling out the carefully preserved yellow handkerchief. "Noah sleeps with it. I should probably wash it more often, but he gets upset when I take it." "So, great-grandma's handkerchief!" Ava had been watching this exchange with rapt attention. I gave that to you 'cause you were sad. Are you still sad? Evan knelt down to her level. Sometimes, but less than I was. Good, Ava nodded seriously. Then, do you want to see my reading corner? Mommy made me a special place with pillows and everything. I'd love to, Evan said. Can baby Noah come? Maya looked at Evan, a question in her eyes. Evan nodded. Sure, Bug, Maya said. But gentle, okay? He's still little. Ava took Maya's free hand and began leading her toward the back of the cafe. Evan followed, feeling like he'd stepped into a dream. The older man intercepted them, his weathered face creasing into a smile. Maya, you going to introduce your friend? Mr. Harlan, this is Evan. And Noah. We met on a flight 7 months ago. The crying baby flight. Ava supplied helpfully. Mommy made him stop crying with great-grandma's song. Mr. Harlan's eyebrows rose. Well then. That's quite a story. He extended his hand to Evan. Harold Harlan. I run this place. Maya's grandmother was my business partner for 30 years before she passed. I'm so sorry for your loss, Evan said, shaking his hand. Thank you. She was well. They don't make people like Miriam anymore. Harlan's eyes were damp. But Maya here is carrying on her work. The cafe. The kindness. All of it. They reached the back corner, where Ava had indeed created a reading nook. Large pillows, a small bookshelf, a child-sized table with crayons. She immediately flopped onto a pillow and patted the space next to her. Sit here! Maya sat, still holding Noah, who showed no inclination to leave her arms. Evan sat across from them, feeling awkward and grateful and terrified all at once. I can't believe you're here, Maya said quietly. Ava had already become absorbed in a picture book, giving them a bubble of semi-privacy. When I gave you that address, I didn't think I hoped maybe, but I didn't want to assume. I drove to Portland 3 times before today, Evan admitted. Made it as far as your street and then chickened out. Why? Because you'd already helped me so much. Because you said you weren't looking for new connections. Because I didn't want to be the pathetic guy who couldn't take no for an answer. He paused. But it's Noah's first birthday next week, and I kept thinking about your grandmother's lullaby and about how it means you are not alone. And I realized I didn't want to spend his first birthday alone. Even if I was being presumptuous, even if this was awkward, I had to try. Maya's expression shifted surprise, understanding, something deeper. His first birthday. That means a year since Lila died. Yeah. Evan's voice was steady despite the ache. I'm not looking for someone to fix me or save me. I'm still figuring out how to be a dad, how to keep working, how to exist without her. But I thought maybe. He stopped, searching for the right words. Maybe I didn't have to figure it all out alone. Maybe sometimes it's okay to need help, to accept kindness, to show up at a cafe in another city because once a stranger was kind. Maya was fully crying now. Noah, sensing her emotion, patted her face with his small hand, mimicking the comforting gesture Ava had used on him months ago. Mommy, don't be sad, Ava said, looking up from her book. Airplane Daddy and baby Noah are here now. That's good, right? It's very good, Bug, Maya managed. It's just sometimes people cry when they're happy too. That's confusing, Ava declared. But she scooted closer, wrapping her small arms around her mother's waist in a sideways hug. Jules appeared with Evan's coffee and a second mug. Thought you might want a refill, Maya. And she set down a plate of cookies for the kids. On the house. Thanks, Jules. After Jules left, Maya looked at Evan over Noah's head. The lullaby, you really kept singing it? Every night. Sometimes multiple times a night. I recorded myself so I could remember it better. I probably sound terrible. But, sing it now, Maya interrupted. Please? Evan felt self-conscious, but nodded. Softly, he began to hum the melody Maya had taught him on the plane. His voice was uncertain, but the tune was there. Imperfect but recognizable. Noah's eyes widened. He looked from Evan to Maya and back, as if connecting pieces of a puzzle. When Evan finished, Maya picked up the melody, her voice clear and strong, adding harmonies he'd never heard. The two voices wove together, creating something richer than either could alone. By the end, Noah was nearly asleep, and Ava had crawled into Evan's lap, listening with rapt attention. That was beautiful, Ava whispered. Like great-grandma's song, but more. It is great-grandma's song, Maya said. But you're right. It's more now. Because someone else learned it, carried it forward, kept it alive. She looked at Evan, and in her eyes was the same understanding he'd seen on the plane, but deeper now, rooted in something beyond a single crisis, beyond momentary kindness. Stay for lunch? Maya asked. I make a mean grilled cheese, and Ava will never forgive me if you leave before she shows you her entire book collection. I have a whole shelf, Ava confirmed importantly. Evan felt something loosen in his chest. Not the knot of grief that would take longer, but the tightness of isolation, of feeling like he had to carry everything alone. We'd love to, he said. If you're sure we're not imposing, you're not. Maya shifted Noah slightly, and the baby made a small, contented sound. You're really not. Mr. Harlan appeared again, this time with a camera. Sorry to interrupt, but would you mind? For the cafe wall? He gestured to a collection of photos near the entrance. Miriam liked to document the good moments. Said they mattered more than people thought. The four of them posed together awkward, tear-stained. Perfect. Ava made bunny ears behind Noah's head. Maya laughed, genuine and surprised. Evan smiled. Really smiled. For the first time in months. The shutter clicked. Beautiful, Mr. Harlan said. Absolutely beautiful. After grilled cheese sandwiches and Ava's exhaustive tour of her book collection, they gravitated to the table in the furthest corner of the cafe. Mr. Harlan had taken over counter duties, giving Maya a break. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, turning the steam from their coffee cups golden. Noah had finally consented to leave Maya's arms and was sitting on the floor between them, stacking wooden blocks that Ava had generously shared. Ava herself was drawing with intense concentration, her tongue poking out slightly. This table, Maya said softly, running her hand along the worn wood. This was my grandmother's spot. Every morning, 6 to 9, she'd sit here, greeting people, talking, listening. Mr. Harlan says half the neighborhood came by just to chat with her. She sounds like she was the heart of this place, Evan said. She was the heart of everything. Maya's voice thickened. When she died, I didn't think I could keep the cafe going. It felt wrong, somehow, like I was pretending to be her. But you're not pretending, Evan pointed out. You're continuing. That's what Mr. Harlan says. He told me. Your grandmother didn't build this place to be a monument. She built it to be alive, changing, growing. So I've been trying, adding new menu items, hosting story time for kids, making it. She paused. Making it mine while still keeping her spirit. What would she think about what you're doing? Maya smiled, sad but genuine. She'd probably tell me to charge more. She was terrible at business, always giving away free coffee to people she thought looked sad or cold, or like they needed a friend. Mr. Harlan handled the actual finances, thank God. The smile faded. But she'd be proud, I think. Of the cafe. Of Ava. Of how I'm trying to raise her with the same values. Good people find each other, but only the brave ones stay, Evan said, remembering the phrase Maya had mentioned on the plane. That was one of Gran's favorite sayings. Maya looked surprised. You remembered. I remembered everything from that night. Evan watched Noah successfully stack 3 blocks before knocking them over with glee. It was the first time since Lila died that I felt like maybe I could do this. Not perfectly, not even well, but do it. Survive it. And have you? Survived? Most days. Evan was quiet for a moment. There are still hard nights, times when Noah cries and I don't know why, and I want to call Lila so badly I can actually feel my phone in my hand before I remember. Times when I go to tell her something funny he did, and it hits me all over again that she'll never know him. Never see him take his first steps or say his first words. Has he started walking? 3 days ago. He took 4 steps and then sat down hard and looked shocked. Evan's smile was bittersweet. I recorded it. I record everything now. Because she can't be there to see it, but at least. He stopped, struggling. At least there's proof it happened, Maya finished gently. At least you're documenting his life, even if she can't be part of it. Yes, they sat with that understanding, watching the children play. Ava had abandoned her drawing to build a tower with Noah, patiently handing him blocks and cheering when he placed them. Evan, Maya said after a while. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why did you really come today? Not the surface reason about the birthday. The real reason. Evan took a breath. Because I've been afraid. Of everything. Of being a bad father. Of failing at work. Of never moving past the grief. But mostly, I've been afraid of, he struggled to articulate it, of staying stuck. Of building a life that's just survival. Just going through motions. Just keeping my head above water forever. And coming here changes that? I don't know. Maybe? Evan met her eyes. But on that plane, for the first time in months, I felt human. Not like a struggling father or a grieving widower or a drowning person. Just human. Connected to someone. Seen. He paused. I think I needed to know if that feeling was real. If connection was still possible. Or if it was just a moment that could never be repeated. Maya was quiet, absorbing this. What if I told you I was scared too? Of what? Of letting anyone in. Of trusting that they'll stay. After Ava's father left. After Gran died. I feel like everyone I depend on disappears. So I keep people at arm's length. Friendly but not close. Helpful but not vulnerable. She looked at her daughter. Ava's the only one I've allowed myself to fully love without fear. And even that terrifies me sometimes. What if something happens to me? What if I fail her? You won't, Evan said with certainty. You can't know that. No. But I know you show up. I know you help strangers on airplanes. I know you're raising a kind, confident, amazing kid while running a business and grieving someone who clearly meant everything to you. That's not failing. That's extraordinary. Maya's eyes shone with tears. You know what Gran used to say? When I'd spiral about whether I was doing enough, being enough, she'd say, Maya, darling, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. Show up. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's what love is. She was right, Evan said. I'm still learning that. Still learning that showing up imperfectly is better than not showing up at all. Is that what you're doing now? Showing up? Trying to, if you'll let me. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, a decision being made, a door opening slightly. Noah's birthday is next week, you said? Next Saturday. What if Maya stopped, reconsidering? Then, with visible courage, what if you came back here for it? We could throw him a party. Nothing big. Just the four of us. Maybe Mr. Harlan. Ava would love it. She's been asking when she'd see baby Noah again since the plane. Evan felt his heart stutter. You'd want that? I think Gran would want that. Would want me to. Maya smiled, tentative but real. To be brave. To let good people stay instead of always expecting them to leave. I'm not going anywhere, Evan said. I mean, I live in Seattle, obviously. But I won't disappear. If you're willing to try whatever this is, I'll show up. Imperfectly, but consistently. Imperfectly and consistently, Maya repeated. I think that might be exactly right. Ava chose that moment to announce, Baby Noah needs cake! It's almost his birthday! It's a week away, Bug, Maya said. But we should practice. Ava was already standing. Mr. Harlan, do we have cake? The adults laughed tentative at first, then genuine. Noah clapped his hands, delighted by the sound, and toppled his block tower again. As Ava ran off to negotiate cake with Mr. Harlan, Maya reached across the table and placed her hand over Evan's. The touch was light, careful, but deliberate. Thank you, she said. For coming. For being brave enough to show up. Thank you, Evan replied, for being brave enough to let me. They sat like that for a moment, hands touching, children playing, the café humming with quiet life around them. Outside, Portland rain began to fall softly against the windows. Inside, where it was warm and smelled like coffee and cinnamon, two broken people took the first tentative steps toward healing. Together. 6 months later, Cannon Beach stretched endless and gray under an April sky that couldn't decide between rain and sunshine. Evan carried Noah on his shoulders, the nearly 2-year-old shrieking with delight every time the waves rushed close to their feet. Maya and Ava walked beside them, Ava wearing rainbow boots and collecting shells in a bucket decorated with her own artwork. Mommy, look, a purple one! Ava held up a shell that was more gray than purple, but her enthusiasm was absolute. Beautiful bug, put it in your collection. They'd been doing this weekend trips to the coast, alternating between Portland and Seattle, building something neither could quite name yet, but both recognized as important since Noah's birthday party. That celebration had been small, perfect. A smash cake that Noah demolished with both hands, off-key singing, Ava wearing a party hat she'd made herself. Mr. Harlan had given Noah a children's book, signed inside, "To Noah, may you always be surrounded by people who show up. Welcome to our family." The "our family" had hit both Evan and Maya hard. Neither had expected to find family again so soon, or in such an unexpected form. But here they were. Noah had taken his first steps at that party, lurching from Maya's arms to Evan's and back again, while Ava cheered like he'd won the Olympics. The video Evan took still made him tear up when he watched it, not from grief, but from gratitude. Lila was still gone. That pain hadn't disappeared, would never disappear entirely. But it had transformed into something else. A bittersweet acknowledgement that love persisted even after loss. That honoring what was lost meant allowing new love to grow. "Daddy, down!" Noah demanded, wiggling. Evan lifted him off his shoulders and set him on the sand. Noah immediately toddled toward Ava, who took his hand with practiced ease. "Come on, baby Noah, let's find you some shells, too." The two children wandered down the beach, Ava pointing out treasures, Noah responding with enthusiastic babbling that occasionally formed real words. "Shell, water, Ava." Maya slipped her hand into Evan's. The gesture had become natural over the past month's casual affection that didn't demand anything, just acknowledged the connection between them. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah." Evan watched his son, still awed by this small person, who carried Lila's eyes and smile, but was becoming entirely his own person. "I was thinking about Lila, about how much she would have loved this, the beach, watching him play, seeing him so happy." "Tell me about her," Maya said. "If you want to." They'd talked about their lost people before. Maya's grandmother, Evan's wife, but usually in glimpses, fragments. This felt different. An invitation to share more fully. "She was terrible at cooking," Evan started, smiling at the memory. "Burned everything. We lived on takeout and her mother's frozen meals for the first year of our marriage. But she could mix a cocktail like nobody's business. Said bartending in college taught her chemistry better than any lab." "What did she do? For work?" "Landscape architect. She designed parks, public spaces. Said her job was to create places where people could breathe." Evan's voice caught slightly. "She would have loved the reading corner at your cafe. The way you've made it welcoming for kids." She believed public spaces should belong to everyone, especially the small and young. "She sounds wonderful." "She was. Is? I don't know the right tense." Evan squeezed Maya's hand. "I used to feel guilty. Thinking about moving forward, about being happy again. Like it betrayed her somehow. And now? Now I think she'd want me to live. Want Noah to have a full life, with people who care about him. Want me to be brave enough to let good people stay." He turned to Maya. "She would have liked you, I think." "Yeah?" "She valued kindness above almost everything else. Said the world had enough smart people, enough ambitious people. What it needed was more good people." Evan smiled. "You would have been on her list." They walked in comfortable silence, watching the kids explore. A few other families dotted the beach, parents with toddlers, teenagers throwing a football, a couple walking a golden retriever. "Gran would have liked you too," Maya said eventually. "She had this thing she'd do. She'd watch how people treated service workers, children, animals. Said that's where you see someone's true character. You're gentle with Noah, patient even when he's difficult." Gran would have approved. "I wish I could have met her." "Me too." Maya leaned her head against Evan's shoulder. "I think about her all the time. What she'd say about the cafe, about you and Noah coming into our lives. She believed things happen for a reason. Not in a destiny way, but in a people cross paths when they need each other way. Do you believe that?" "I'm starting to." Maya looked up at him. "I think we found each other when we both needed to remember that asking for help isn't weakness. That letting people in, even when it's scary, is how we survive." Ahead of them, Ava had convinced Noah to sit on the sand. She was arranging shells in a pattern, explaining something with great seriousness. Noah watched her with complete adoration, occasionally grabbing a shell and putting it in his mouth before Ava gently redirected him. "She's so good with him," Evan observed. "She wants a sibling," Maya admitted. "Keeps asking when baby Noah is going to be her brother." The implication hung in the air between them. They'd been taking things slowly, no labels, no pressure, just showing up for each other consistently. But Ava's question pointed toward a future neither had explicitly discussed yet. "What do you tell her?" Evan asked carefully. "That families come in all different shapes. That sometimes people who aren't related by blood become family anyway." Maya paused. "That we're figuring it out as we go, and that's okay. Is it okay? For you?" Maya stopped walking, turned to face him fully. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared of getting too attached, and then losing you. Scared of Ava getting attached and then being hurt if things don't work out. Scared of my own capacity to screw this up." "I'm scared too," Evan said. "Scared of screwing up Noah's life by making the wrong choice. Scared you'll realize I'm still a mess and decide this is too much. Scared of loving again after losing so much." "So we're both terrified?" "Completely." They looked at each other, and simultaneously started laughing. It was ridiculous, really two grown adults, on a beautiful beach, with happy children, admitting they were scared of happiness. "Gran used to quote something," Maya said when the laughter subsided. "I don't know if it was a poem or just something she made up, but she'd say, 'Fear is just love trying to protect itself. The brave thing is to love anyway.'" "Love anyway," Evan repeated. He reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind Maya's ear, a gesture that felt both intimate and natural. "I think I can do that. If you can, I can try," Maya whispered. "Imperfectly, but consistently. That's all either of us can do." They kissed then, soft and sweet, while the ocean roared and the children played and the world continued its complicated spinning. When they broke apart, Ava was standing right beside them, hands on hips. "Finally. I thought you were never going to kiss. I told Mr. Harlan you would, eventually, but he said not to rush people." "How long have you been standing there?" Maya asked, flustered. "Long enough." Ava grinned, then grabbed both their hands. "Come on!" Baby Noah found a crab. They let themselves be pulled down the beach toward Noah, who was indeed staring at a small crab with absolute fascination. Later, after they'd dried off and warmed up at a beachside café, after Noah fell asleep in his car seat and Ava dozed against Maya's shoulder, Evan and Maya sat in the parking lot, not quite ready for the day to end. "Next weekend?" Maya said. "Ava has a dance recital. It's her first one. She's very nervous." "We'll be there," Evan said immediately. "If you want us there, I want you there." Maya smiled. "And the weekend after that, there's a children's book festival in Seattle. Ava's been asking to go. We'll make it a weekend. You two can stay with us, the house has a guest room. It's small, but it's perfect." They were doing it, Evan realized. Making plans. Weaving their lives together with the careful deliberation of people who'd learned that connection required effort, intention, showing up even when it was inconvenient. "Maya?" "Yeah?" "Thank you. For letting me show up, for showing up yourself." Evan looked at her in the dimming light. "For teaching me that family isn't just what you're born with. It's what you choose to build. Thank you for being brave enough to walk through that cafe door." Maya's eyes were bright. "For keeping the lullaby alive. For showing Noah that love persists even through loss." In the back seat, Noah stirred, making the small sound that meant he'd wake soon. Ava mumbled something about purple shells in her sleep. "We should get them home," Maya said reluctantly. "Which home?" "Good question." She smiled. "Yours tonight, mine next weekend." "Our homes," Evan suggested. "Plural. Because that's what they're becoming, right? Places where all of us belong." Maya nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. As Evan drove them back toward Portland, the sunset breaking through clouds to paint everything gold and pink, he thought about circles, how his life had broken into jagged pieces, how he'd thought the circles of family and love were permanently shattered. But circles didn't have to be unbroken to be whole. They could be reformed, reconstituted from new pieces that fit together in unexpected ways. A widowed father and his son, a single mother and her daughter, a cafe that smelled like cinnamon and carried the legacy of a woman who believed in helping people. A lullaby passed from grandmother to daughter to stranger to child. Good people finding each other, brave people choosing to stay. Love anyway. The circle, beautifully imperfect, continued its turn.